For more, let's bring in Reverend Dr. Anderson Jeremiah. He's a lecturer in world Christianity at Lancaster University. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. This was an attack on a day of Christian celebration on a place of worship, a number of churches. Is it fair to say that this was an attack on the Christian community in Sri Lanka?
It's definitely fair to say that it is definitely an attack on the Christian faith as it is in the Sri Lankan country. And also this reflects the global trend against Christian minorities in several countries. And particularly, I think they have chosen a very important day for Christians, which is the Easter, where Christians observe the coming back to life of Jesus Christ, which is very important to Christian faith. And so it's a very symbolic attack on the center and central message of Christianity.
Reverend Anderson, you spoke of this global trend, but does it come as a surprise? Of course, it's shocking, but does it come as a surprise given that there are simmering ethnic and religious tensions in Sri Lanka and have been even in the aftermath of the civil conflict a decade ago?
Not at all. I think just to put this attack in perspective, I think there has been series of attacks against religious minorities, both Muslims and Christians in Sri Lanka. And particularly Christians have been targeted in the past year or so. And to give you a little more background, that actually in Anuradhapura, one of the towns, actually a Methodist church was attacked, and the Catholic Archbishop actually tried to reach the government sources to say actually many of their places of worship are under attack. So this is not something that just came out of the blue, but actually something that has come up. But it's very important to underline that what has happened on Easter Sunday is very different to the civil conflict that happened 10 years ago. Because of the nature of the current attack, I think we need to distinguish between these two, but at the same time try and understand the links which the extremist groups are trying to flare up.
You're speaking of these extremist groups, and of course, since the attack, the government has shut down various social media platforms like Facebook because they were previously being used to incite anti-Muslim violence inside the country against the Muslim minority population. Do you think this is an effective way of addressing this issue?
I don't think so, because although social media and other forms of media has been restricted, this taps into a particular kind of unrest that's been happening in the Sri Lankan context, particularly with the rising nationalist agenda of the majority Buddhist Sinhala community, targeting Muslims and Christians. This has been happening for the past 3-4 years, which has been manifested very explicitly in the political situation in Sri Lanka, the conflict between the Prime Minister and the President. So I think even though these might have some restrictions on how news spreads across the island, but what has happened is actually the community is really on a very fragile state because of the lack of leadership, political leadership, and also lack of understanding how minority communities are treated within the Sri Lankan context. So it may go to a certain extent in restricting how false news and fake news is spread, but at the same time, there's a lot more needs to be done.
Reverend Dr. Anderson Jeremiah, thank you so much for your very insightful analysis here on France 24.